welcome to the future.
This is amazing.
Okay, so let me start by saying I'm very, very excited to have, and more than excited, I think I'm honored. You're like the super fanciest, but also doesn't like to be fancy guest that we're having here. So, so that's also great.
Amazing.
Yes. Marisa and I have been working together since I was in college. She's like heard all my sub stories, but then also still managed to hire me. God and she know why. So that's amazing. So we're going to start by, I think let's just do brief intros so that everyone knows everyone and also everyone in the audience knows everyone.
Yes.
I mean, I guess I'll start first. Can you guys hear the children in the background?
No, I think they're suppressed,
Okay.
which is amazing.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
They're expressing their musical talents on the piano, but that's okay. I'm glad that it's under control. So I'll start with me since I'm the bridge between us all. My name is Sheila Chukwulozie, and I am your host for today. I'm actually just technically your host, but I meant like your host as well. But I am collaborating with Uzoma on this project about time, basically. We're looking at the book Arrow of God by Chinua Achebe, written in 1964. And we are basically just looking at proverbs as sort of like these vehicles of timelessness that sort of like are always spoken in time, but in different times. You have different proverbs for different times. I'm outside this project. I'm a performance artist and a scholar and just an all-around queen. That's it. That's my intro. Uzoma, do you want to go next?
Yes. My small preamble is that I've heard a lot about you, Marisa, from Sheila and Amir, and I'm very excited to be talking. You're our first guest, and I feel like, yeah, just from everything I heard, it would be a great way to kick off the series. I'm Uzoma.
Thank you.
And I think there's a lag.
Yeah, I think there's a slight lag.
Okay, we'll soldier on. So yeah, I'm Uzoma, and I identify in this moment as a digital artist and a web artist. I'm, like Sheila said, working on this project, trying to recode time, reconfigure time, think differently. Using Proverbs in Arrow of God as a vehicle to do so. And I'm particularly interested in situating the contemporary state of existence.
I can hear you, but it's breaking. Marisa, is it breaking up for you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I don't know. Can you hear?
Really intensely.
Okay.
Yeah, try leaving and never coming back.
No, I don't know what to do. Maybe I should leave and come back as well. Okay, I'll try.
Yeah. Oh wait. I feel like lags, especially like now that everybody else gets to experience, because I think most of the time it was like, I think people who had to like communicate like from really far places, like just occasionally or family wise. But now that people are working from such far and wide places in the world, I think people are experiencing lags so much more.
That's interesting.
As a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
I always have this dream of doing like a performance that's just people saying hello, Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you? Hello.
But that would like be
Hello?
really
Can you
moving,
hear
and I
me?
cry just thinking about it.
I'm so serious, Marisa. Like a 1 hour play of just sort of like misunderstanding, miscommunication, yeah, just feeling like the weird one in your family, all boiled down to a single WhatsApp call.
Oh, are they coming back?
Yes, they are. They are. But I think their internet is really bad. I think it also has to do with the way that we build houses here, actually. I've heard this time after time that based on the way that the houses are built, sometimes it's actually like it doesn't allow for internet connection. Like you go to certain places and they're like, yeah, this the way the houses are built in this entire estate. The internet is
Yeah,
bad.
Wi-Fi is
And I'm
always
thinking,
bad
is it the
that way.
but what is it? Is it the way the house is
Mm-hmm.
placed
It can be
or I don't know.
placement. It can be like utilities, like where they are outside. I'm in a big old house now. It's really vertical, and so we have to have like multiple routers, like they're all linked to each other across the floors because the signal won't go up the stairs. You see what I mean? Because the ceilings are old and they're probably plaster. You see what I mean? And if you have like
I see what you
concrete
mean.
at all or cinder block,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
can't pass through water, so it depends on where your water pipes are, for instance.
Wow. So the cables depend on where the water pipes
Yeah,
are?
like all those things affect it.
Interesting. I think we'll actually come back to that. But Uzoma, are you good? Are we back?
I think so. I mean, can you hear me
Yeah.
well?
It sounds promising, but we'll see. You were describing yourself.
Yes, I was describing my digital and web artist in this moment. And that I am particularly interested and excited about, like in terms of our research, excited about situating proverbs which are timeless in the present, because I feel like there's some sort of disconnect between where we are now in contemporary Nigeria, maybe even on the continent generally. There's a disconnect between where we are now and some of like the ancestral wisdoms that have gotten us here. And yeah, I'm very interested in how those things can be situated in the present day, even using some of the tools that we've inherited, like we've learned, we've adapted, like the digital that, so yeah, that's what's really driving me for this,
Cool.
for our research project.
Marisa, would you like to do
Yeah.
a bio of yourself for yourself?
I don't know. I don't have anything good to say. I'm Marisa Parham. I'm a professor of English, and I direct AdHum, which is the African American Digital Humanities Initiative at University of Maryland. I'm also a worker at IRL Humanities, which is an independent digital production and humanities lab. And I'm also the associate director of METH, which is the Maryland Institute for Technology and Humanities. So I spend all my time talking to people about the ways they want to play with their phones and computers to make amazing things.
Amazing. Can you give us the most non-professional description of yourself ever?
I don't really have one. LOL. I'm old, remember?
No, that doesn't count. I refuse.
Yeah. What kind of description do you want?
I want what you would tell, like if I had a child now and she were a 3-year-old and she was meeting you, how would you describe yourself to her?
I would say, hi, I'm Marisa. I play with computers and making digital art and experiences.
Nice. Lovely. Yes. Because I think we play play so much. That was basically like, that's our job, to like find more ethical, responsible ways to just play. It's like we're basically setting the rules on the playground, but we're also building the playground.
I think that's exactly right.
I think it's cool. I think so what we've designed this particular call to go is that we're opening. So like we said in the email, we want to talk to you about time, and I think why I think you're perfect to talk about time is because the concept of passing time or revolutionary time and radical time. But I think me and Uzoma, we just like named this whole space as just like a generative conversation. I think instead of just latching onto maybe like what you know or what I know, I really want this space to be like a nursery for questions that affect all of us like equally, like things that we may not have thought about or knew. So we're going to begin with a quote on time, and I want us to sort of like explore that quote, like just respond to it. So, time, which is unreal, casts over all things, including ourselves, a veil of unreality.
I love that.
What do you love about it?
I mean, do they mean time or the way we talk about time or measure time? You know? Because I think that's part for me to unreality is that like time does exist to some extent, but how we talk about it is so distant from existence.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to be constantly running on multiple tracks or whatever. And that's the unreality, like 8-hour workday or, you know, Monday through Friday or whatever your thing is. Like those are the parts we've made up. And they're tiring.
Yes, they are actually. It's really tiring these days to be on time.
God, yeah, it's really hard to be on time, especially if your body's not moving enough or across space. You know, one of my obsessions is like when things that are about time we talk about as being about space, or things that are about space we talk about time, and this just makes it all a mess because it's so hard to think about time without space. Like multiple things all happening, like sitting at my computer, but they're different things at different times, but I don't move.
Yeah. That's one thing that I when I talk about my phone, actually the first break, one of the earliest breaks I took from social media, that was my big problem, was that I felt like I couldn't separate my time on this one space of a phone, like on this one space of a screen. I think one thing that really bothered me was I would go on, that time it was Facebook. I would go on Facebook and I would see, oh, happy birthday to my dog that just turned 7. And then I would go and see, oh, my grandma just had cancer. And then I would go and see, can you vote for like Palestine? And then I would go and see, you know, like homophobia. I couldn't. It's like by the time I've scrolled, I don't know if I should be celebrating that someone's dog just turned 7, or I should be enraged that homophobia is something that like is just so prevalent. Like I couldn't pick up the phone and know, okay, this is what I'm spending my time on. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to letter write to people. Like I became very passionate about just like going to paper and knowing that this one page is dedicated to sending a message to someone. So I think sometimes when that time gets muddled up, I feel like I need space to help me separate time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think putting space and time together is interesting because that's essentially what the digital does. And Sheila, we heard this on our last call with Nishant. Like the digital is a vehicle for turning space into time and collapsing space. And I think the extreme end of that is what you're describing, when everything is like flat and you're in so many different spaces, like emotional and even geographical at the same, like simultaneously. That's yeah. When we talk about this a lot, like that is a
And I think
difficult
the
thing
thing
to be
with
able
even
to cope
saying
with.
I think it's tiring to be on time is also, it's not just, of course, about showing up to things on time, like showing up to meetings at 10 a.m. when it's 10 a.m., but it's also showing up to like the time of different communities. Like, for instance, the time of the Asian American community right now is one of reflection and grief and mourning. But that time, for instance, in Nigeria, I guess, which is every time, but like on a large scale, on a large scale, that time was like last year, October. So in a way, like being on time almost means, and I'm just exploring a thought here, it almost means like never actually being on your own time. Like, I feel like to sort of like choose your own time in this place
Yeah.
where like the global time feels consolidated is a kind of like, as they say, silence is violence. But when you're like, no, I'm only silent because I have just had violence done to me, and I don't really know if I have any more to give. It's like, well, if you're going to come here and tweet about like what you just had for lunch, surely you can like participate in reacting to sort of like what's happening on another time. So I don't know. It's what do you guys think?
I think that's a very interesting. That's very interesting. That one time for one community or one individual, my it's like simultaneous times. I don't know. That's so interesting to think about, and I'm still just even ruminating.
Yeah, but also even like that moment of showing up, like with your social media example, like there might be times when like I'm in social media, but also somewhere else. So even the time doesn't work because I might be there precisely because I just want to like talk about what I had for lunch. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to do that, but it won't sync up with someone else's time, right?
Right.
Of why they're there. You know, this is in Black Haunts in the Anthropocene, this digital project I made years and years ago. I have a whole section that's about that. Like, you know, you going on and like say hi and see someone's like cute kids or puppies, and instead you get hit with some catastrophe. Or you're going for a catastrophe because you're feeling catastrophic, and someone's like, but OMG, I'm positive my dog is smiling, you know, and like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how to reconcile like time as a sort of refraction of someone's state of being.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how that gets like played out so radically differently for different people. But then you're all being collected together on these platforms, which collapses us into all being the same in the moment of it, but fails, rightfully.
Right, right.
Mm.
And I think the effort to collapse, like we were promised,
Yeah.
I don't know if we were promised or we took the experiment of collapsing to only be like a positive thing. Maybe there is a conflation of the word progressive with positive, because it almost makes me think that whenever we say progressive, it almost means towards a future where there's no suffering.
That's really interesting.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's such a good. I don't even know if it's a segue, but I feel like that's what we're doing here. Like this project, like our research is trying to say, you know, progress isn't like
Mhm.
progress moving forward like that. It's like the Sankofa bread. It's not always, you know, yeah, it doesn't necessarily equate to positive, like it's not necessarily a positive thing. Um, Yeah, but that's one thought. The other thoughts I had was like, what if there was a social media platform where you go on it and it's like, you know, there are all these different rooms depending on
Isn't that
how people
Clubhouse?
are like what people are talking about and how people are feeling, and you can sort of like,
Amazing.
I guess, yeah.
So
How does
Clubhouse is
that
basically
work?
what
I'm
you're
not on
just
Clubhouse.
describing.
Like,
Like you have different rooms with different
yeah,
conversations. Like the conversations, first of all, you have even the groups of the like, so you can be like
mm,
veganism or like, I don't know, health, but then even there you have even more specific rooms like
mm,
is honey a vegan product?
mm,
Room. And so you have those specificities, but even that, like,
mm,
I think people are surprised that they get worn out by the future. I just actually, which reminds me of something I just
mm,
tweeted um, yesterday. So I've been reading that Simone Weil book, and there's a quote where she said, "When we are disappointed by a pleasure which we have been expecting and which comes, the disappointment is because we were expecting the future, and as soon as it is there, it is present. We want the future to be there without ceasing to be future."
That's really compelling. Say
yeah.
more. What do you mean?
That's why meditation is good. I just feel like it helps, at least for me, it helps take away that everlasting allure of the future. It helps you
Mhm.
situate whatever promise you were hoping for in the
So
present.
basically, it's like
And that's
at the end
the
of the
gift.
day, being present is not just like the way I'm seeing it is like being present is not just like some spiritual wusa thing that, like, I don't know, the mystics talk about. It's almost the only option we have for
Mhm.
surviving, because, and even for being
Yeah.
happy with ourselves, because if we plan a future knowing that it's a present that we're going to meet, or we might meet, even if it's not us in this body, but like even us in a future iteration of ourselves, and we have to deal with it with the like, the only way to sort of like enjoy all these efforts we put into creating our future is being okay with enjoying a present as it comes.
It's interesting to think about where the present fits in anything, and
Mm.
if we're allowed to actually appreciate the present.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I mean, that's part of the
Mm.
meditation thing too, where it's
Me
like
say more.
just
Yeah.
being where you are as you are, whereas the future and being so caught up in anticipation, which also reduces the idea of time to the sort of product that's supposed to deliver an experience or
Right.
deliver on an expectation or deliver a moment. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
also like,
Mm-hmm.
a way of thinking about capitalist time being oriented towards the future, which is hard because if we go back to where Sheila started thinking about
Mm.
the idea of progressive or progressivism as like a sort of, you know, thinking about improvement through the future, it's hard to also be kind of call that, just kind of call that
Yeah.
capitalist. But it's hard, like balancing between like setting goals and it's articulating like
Mm-hmm.
difference, but also understanding that it's never going to satisfy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
politically.
Yes. I'm laughing because, like, I think just why
Yeah.
did I laugh?
Yeah. Mm.
Because I found it so funny to like really understand that it feels like there's a synonym between something being in the present and something being unsatisfiable. Like it kind of revealed to me how so many people are so dissatisfied with the present.
I really agree with what Marisa is saying about like it's so clearly capitalist structure, and like we've heard all the reasons why it's like the marketing ploy to always be looking for a better version of yourself, a better version of your life in the future. And
the,
I
whole-
don't know. All I'm trying to say is it's a scam, and
the
we
sort
need
of
to
like
stop it.
putting our eyes on the
Um,
future is a scam.
yeah, it's definitely a scam because yo, Yeah, like
Someone asked our friend
when will it happen?
Immaculata Noma asked a really good question on Instagram the other day. She said, if you didn't think that your college degree will get you a job, would you still go to college? And I'm asking you guys now.
No. Well, I didn't want to go in the first place, so
Why didn't you want to go?
I don't know if this applies. It just didn't feel relevant to. I didn't see the point to like what I wanted to do. Like, yeah, it wasn't about the job for me. That was other people
Marisa, what about
projecting.
you?
Yeah, I was still, but I'm in a different place because I sort of believe, even though it's not always true, in sort of like the possibility of college and university, but I also strongly believe that at the same time we don't go to college in order to get jobs. Sorry, the child is doing a thing. So we don't go to college in order to get jobs. We go to college at best to be employable, but that's not the same thing. There's no job aspiration. I mean, I'm constantly telling students, you don't major in your future job. That's not a thing. And telling students that has been part of the great lie of like trying to justify, in the US at least, the destruction of trade school, college, and the ways that college became a requirement for employability in ways that never got articulated. In the ways that we don't explain that to students, I always find so, I don't know, distressing. I do think college and university are actually very important, and they're not actually tied to employment. So we kind of destroyed.
I remember. Sorry, I was just saying that one of the strongest memories I think that it comes up so often because I don't think I realized how often the thought would come up of like, why don't I know how to do this? I have a college degree. Like it came up so often. And I remember when I was in LA with you and we spent that day together. And I think it was time to ride the scooter or something. And I was like, I can't believe I can't ride a scooter. And like I have a college degree. And you were just like, that's like, do you think that's why you went to like, do you think that college degree gives you like the ability to ride a scooter? Like you were just so, and I think I said it about 3 times, and every time your response was like, that doesn't guarantee you like anything. Like your college degree is not, it's not going to give you any of these things you're talking about for living your life. Like your practice, especially because I couldn't drive at all at that time. And you're like, it's not the same intelligence. They're not about the same thing. And I didn't even know I expected them to be about the same thing. But I thought it so, even as a joke, it was so natural to me because like, it seems like, of course, once you have a college degree, and not just like any college degree, the kind of college degree that I had, once you have that, then like, why can't you figure out how to use a tin can opener, which I really had a problem figuring out for a while. And I think like it just it does something to what you think that 4 years is supposed to open up for you. You think that like I think maybe, or I thought that in 4 years I should have acquired all the skills to figure out the like 80 to 90 years of my life. Like for some reason I should come out of college and know how to drive a truck better than a truck driver who's been driving the truck for like 35 years because I'm a college graduate.
Yeah, and that's just so like a strange, I think a lot of people have that. And I haven't figured out like quite where that pressure or that understanding comes from. I think there's such a pushback because, at least in the US, everything is so anti-education. And so you put job in front of education because job's important, education isn't. And college sort of fell for the rhetorical trick. which is mainly about keeping women and people of color out of higher education, right? And so there's a way in which, it becomes this sort of horrible moment where you're making promises about people's lives. Like, to go all the way, you hear this in college all the time. Even thing you think of as skills, like you're not supposed to necessarily be learning to write in college. You're supposed to learn it before you got there, and you're learning to get better or do different kinds of things, right? And so the idea that college is even sort of high school part two, like for my grandparents, my parents' generation, they had high school educations, were all public school people that were in many ways more rigorous than what you see today. So they came out of high school with an intense number of like really strong academic skills because it was understood that high schools would actually prepare you for employability and further learning, right? But as that fell away out of high school, that burden shifted to college as if college was like part two, what we call, high school here. And so it became this sort of weird moment where people didn't realize that there's all kinds of ways of knowing and doing things, of course, that are valuable. It's just actually different than what you're supposed to be doing for the most part in the college environment. But since we held up college as if you go to college and you become this other person, on a level of knowing things, on the level of skills, it just literally makes no sense. Right. And that's just unfortunate.
What made that shift?
It's different for different countries. In the US, again, I just think it's the way everything became about getting jobs. As the job market became tighter, college sold themselves as a thing that students have to do because we have all these statistics about how you have a better income in the US if you have a college degree, which is true, but they're not actually correlative, right? It correlates with how people hire, not with what you actually learned in college. And so it became this weird sort of displacement of education or displacement between actual education and actual outcome. And we don't seem to care anymore about how they connect.
What was the PR that made people, because I feel like people will, especially businesses, will do things that like they think will make them profitable. So what was the PR that got sent to hirers that people with college degrees somehow would make them more profitable?
I don't think there was. It's interesting. You can make the argument that it's true. College degree makes you more employable. So what the employers are looking for are people who have skills, who can read, who can write, who can compute, who can manage, who can do all these things, right? And the idea is that by passing through college, you've proven that you have all these skills. But most importantly, you've proven you know how to learn. And the part that got left behind is this idea of like learning how to learn. And that's the rise. Like I remember part of my generation, it was very rare that someone would say they were going to college as an undergraduate to major in business. There's no such thing as majoring in business. It's not a thing. But that was part of that push, right, of like making college more useful. So you have people majoring in things that have no relationship to real life. You don't major in business as an undergrad and then go open a business. It just doesn't work that way. You open a business by being scrappy, having a good idea, knowing how to manage people, blah, 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 right? So yeah, it's just this kind of like very sort of sad moment, I think, where as the US was changing, and more kinds of people, especially when we're entering the workforce, the standards of what it took to be in the workforce continually rose. So there are all these jobs you can no longer get with a high school degree because fewer women and people of color had high school degrees, right? That's what the whole thing, like a Black woman in the United States with a PhD very likely will only earn as much as someone white with a high school diploma. Absolutely.
What?
And so there's a way in which the numbers never tracked anyway. It was just about producing new kind of moving goalposts that most people could never reach. And then it just sort of backfired on itself and became the general message for everyone. So speaking of anticipation in the future, we're all screwed.
In summary, I remember reading an essay when I took this course on disability, and it was we read Ivan Illich, and in the essay he was saying, I just remember, first of all, I remember when he was saying people mistake the court of law for justice, and people mistake journalism for truth. Like that was the first thing that sort of like clarified, and I think it's very related to what you're saying now. Like people mistake college for learning. So like they make these equations: no college, no learning, no journalism, no truth, no like primary school, no education. And then he went on to just say like the way class also affects these things is that like because wealth is also signified by exclusion a lot. When the majority of the population are catching on to the signifiers of wealth, the wealthy have to create new signifiers, because it's not about the thing itself, it's about the fact that only a minority of people can afford to be included in the thing.
That's exactly right. That's the moving goalpost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were
Oh
saying,
no, I was saying it's
please
also
go
just
ahead.
very bleak. Yeah.
It's very bleak. That's why I'm
I mean, as
quiet.
schools here in college universities became more diverse, that's the rise of stuff like, even see that you're undergraduate, like the rise of the career office and all these fellowships and all this stuff. And it's tied to the fact that schools didn't used to have to offer those kinds of services because the students who got into, for instance, like a, fancy university or college came in already with their future work connections. Again, they don't go to college to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
They had a job before they got to college. Can they go work
Mm-hmm.
for like their father's friend or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
It's real, right? And so there's a way in which, as you begin admitting more kinds of people from more kinds of economic backgrounds, colleges suddenly had these abysmal job placement numbers because they were letting in all those people who didn't come in already set on their path. And they realized they had to do something because they had made this promise about betterment, but never really were honest with themselves about the mechanism they had to look at. Because the people who they had always brought into the colleges as students, again, were coming in as already having money and connections. And the colleges were like able to, in some ways, even take responsibility for that. So, X number of students graduate and go to this fancy job, and the college gets to say it's because they have a degree from us, but it's not because they have a degree from you, it's because their uncle works there. But you get to displace one thing onto the other, or substitute one truth into the other.
So is college, back to time, does that mean originally or historically college was like a place for wealthy people to spend time,
Absolutely.
like to
And they were
enjoy
supposed to be
time?
learning and doing all this stuff, but absolutely, it's a holding place. And it's very recent that it's not a space that's mainly for people with wealth. In time, the idea was at the time you needed to grow up and improve yourself, which is real. And I think all kinds of people deserve that time. But it used to be a kind of time that only wealthy white men had, no one else.
Right. Which makes me think about like frat culture.
Yep.
How, yeah, that's so important or interesting. Like, because in my mind, I've always wondered, like, how did people, like, these people are not here to learn. Like, it was just clear, because even like, for instance, when I used to work at the phonathon where we call alumni, sometimes we would get into conversation with the alumni and they'd be asking like, yeah, so do people still like just throw parties, and then we would get into a conversation of like, no, I'm actually in school. And they're like, yeah, no, in our day we were just like, we had these parties that like people would just come from different schools and we would organize parties and it would be organizing parties. And I just, it's weird, right? Because on one hand, there's that racial aspect of it. But even coming back to Nigeria, like when I speak to my siblings, like my older sister, or like a new dancer that I have, for her, university was also like, it was university because of the parties. Like you find any way to sort of like get through your degree, but what makes university is the party. So it's, I don't know how to ask the question, because the question of, is it race that makes sort of like the concept of university time different? But then you come to a different culture and then you also find out that like that's like the first time people are maybe free from their parents, they're free from regulation, they're free from law. Their parents are paying their school fees, and so they also sort of like want to band together. So is it something where just universally people want to use that time as a holding time, but in some spaces, some people are seen as like only working? So like, what makes you think you can come and then not work because you are made to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all exactly right. And I think as you were talking, I was thinking how it plays out so differently amongst in the US context against people from different cultural backgrounds. There's always a conflict at schools because even the sort of party imagination isn't held by everyone equally, right? And so it becomes this thing of, again, where are you going to college so you can live the stereotype of college because it's an experience that's been promised to people? Or are you going because you want to learn or do new things or meet new people? And for a lot of people, it's the latter, but even like the space for that becomes impossible. It's really, I think the complexities even of like, for instance, students who don't want to be heavy drinkers would be an example in like, what kind of life are they allowed to have? Right. Or not being demonized or, et cetera. And just, it makes you understand how it's actually a cultural pact that more people are being asked to participate in, but they're not being allowed to actually change the terms of engagement. Right. So you can be a person from whatever background you're from, but the purpose of coming to your college is to become like everyone who's been there before. And then that's problematic, to say the least.
I've been thinking about what you said, Sheila, about that quote, equating college to learning, justice to journalism to truth. That. And I'm interested in how that ties in with the questions we're asking about what is defined as wisdom or as knowledge or comes to be popularly known as that. And I don't know, can you say more about that? Like where are the possibilities for multiple wisdoms and how does that fit in with sort of that quote about like holding like mapping these one-to-one relationships?
I think that's really, really, really tough because there's so many angles. Like even just recently, I was seeing some tweets about stop calling my English Ibotic. So Ibotic is how we say someone's English is like dripping with an Igbo accent. But like the people were saying, stop saying my like my English is Ibotic. When a white person speaks English, you just say that that's an English accent. So why can't that just be my Igbo accent? But when people say Ibotic, it's covered in this shame because I always tell people the story about how when I came to Amherst, I remember like we were just walking, me and my friend Alex were walking behind some people, and then one girl asked the other girl, "Oh, hey, are you local?" And I was like, why would that girl be so insulting? And the other girl just turned back. I was like, no, actually, I'm from blah blah blah. And I thought, oh my god, so here being asked if you're local is not an insult, it's just a question. Like local actually means are you from here? Because where we are from, we're so ashamed to be from where we're from that to be asked, in short, you're never even asked are you local, you're always told you're local, as in like you are a local champion. Like that's something that's used to insult people. And I just think like talking about how time is connected to space, it's just it says, or it sort of like refers to the fact that the rhythm that we're on isn't considered a progressive rhythm, like which coincides with the sort of like the mentality of even Trump referencing us as shithole countries. And a lot of us, even as much as we want to complain that this is this and this is that, I don't know any Nigerian, this is me personally, I don't know any Nigerian that does not complain about the state of Nigeria. I don't know any Nigerian that's not the first to be like, you can't trust Nigerians. Nigerians are stupid. Nigerians are greedy. Nigerians are dangerous. Like, I hear those the most from Nigerians. And I remember when I was coming back to Nigeria and I was like, yeah, I really don't like the stereotype. I just think we have to sort of like change the stereotype. And I've been bitch slapped for that. Like I'm in a daze. I'm in so many different dazes from so many different experiences of Nigerians who have actually like frustrated me, who have tried to dupe me, who've tried to extort me in Nigeria, but also I've been in the presence of Nigerians who've tried to uplift me, who've tried to support me, who've taught me new things, who've made me laugh, they've celebrated me. So I think like maybe the problem is, I mean, as Chimamanda says, the danger of a single story. It's like, it's not that Nigerians are not what they say we are, but maybe we are just not only what they say we are. But it's a bit expensive to spend so much time mining for what is good, and mining for what is not exploitative in a place where like that's so bogged down by affliction. Because I even in the book that I'm reading, the Simone Weil book, she talks about how affliction completely degrades the spirit, so much so that like the person cannot define the I from within. The person has to only be a slave to the I defined from outside. And so what happens is that like when people say, "Oh, Nigerians are this, Nigerians are exploitative, Nigerians are," then also they're the most affected and afflicted by that because they can't even come to their own conclusion of I'm a Nigerian, but I'm nice because they're not only are they sort of like affected by outside, like in terms of just your family members outside, but also the outside of the world and this globe that feels this sort of like realm that always feels like paradise. Like America is the future for Nigerians. The concept of the future, which is something that hasn't happened yet, is a place that exists in the mind of a Nigerian. So what is like a spaceship to a lot of Nigerians is the visa office. Like that stamp on their passport is Star Trek to them. So it's just, I mean, there's too many different ways my mind can go, but I for now I think it's maybe just about the perception of ourselves is almost like the foundation of what we need to address that, but that foundation is affected by so many things that extend beyond just saying like I am a nice person, because sometimes you just have to be able to afford the money to know that you can give. Like it was even in Amherst that I came to that conclusion that wow, kindness is actually like it's a virtue of some of money sometimes. Like I remember being in Amherst Cinema and someone came into, we were in a line just waiting, and then someone came into the line and everybody just adjusted and let them come into the line. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, hey, in Nigeria, you want to come into the line, you have to write a letter explaining to the 2 million people behind you why you deserve to come in. Like everyone is fighting, like, where are you coming from? You can't. And I just thought, well, wow, everybody here can afford one person skipping the line because it's not connected to like 10 extra people who want to skip the line. Like, and I think with Nigeria, the amount of people we have doesn't also afford us the time of patience, because there's the fear that if you're patient for one car to sort of like come cut through you in traffic, you have to allow like 20 other cars, right? So it's just complicated in that way.
I like that. I think we lost.
We lost Uzoma, yeah, but he'll be back soon. That's my belief.
I think your rant is right. I mean, I think the line thing is hard at somewhere like the cinema, where a lot of people tend to know each other. I'm thinking in most parts of the U.S., people would flip out, like,
right,
unless people already had an understanding of like what was happening and why. You see what I mean? So that's
right.
Your point sort of stands. We're thinking just about like the ways that when you live a life of privilege, are you able to afford more privilege versus feeling like you're losing something in every interaction otherwise.
Yeah. But I don't want to assume that, because I also refer to that conversation that we've had before, Marisa, where like privilege shifts context. and it's something that people forget, which is just another way of saying like in a different time, which is related to a different space, that privilege may not be what it was. Like the privilege may be less privileged in a different time and in a different space that already exists, not in the future that like is coming in, I don't know, 2025, in the future that is already here and now in a different like arena. Privilege shifts context. So I don't want to sort of like just say, oh yes, the privilege of like people in Amherst. But I think that actually, even before I go into that, I actually want to ask you to attempt to sort of like explain what you think of when you think of privilege, Marisa.
I mean, that's a hard question because it's deeply contextual. I mean, there's economic privilege, there's social privilege, there's gender privilege. I really mean it. And privilege is being the sort of right to imagine that the sort of structure or even rationale for your concern or your presence, you're allowed to do things in ways that make sense to yourself. I'm trying to avoid saying freedom, because I don't want to quite go that far. But they're tied somewhere at their root, deep down. And so privilege becomes simply the right or the imagination that you matter in any given situation.
Right.
And we're talking about people using their privilege against each other. It's the people who can't seem to understand that their sense of mattering is being weaponized against someone else. The other person is not allowed to emerge into mattering, be it their perspective or their approach or their life circumstances. So I think it's actually, it's simple for me in its construction, but how it actually plays out in terms of moments when it might be identified is hard because it's, again, tied to circumstance.
What would you say, and I know I'm asking for definitions, but it's less about defining, but more about, for me, getting you to sort of like just throw some words at a concept that we are grappling with now. So what is your idea, or what has your idea of the word progressive been, or progress even?
I mean, for me, progress is always utopian. It's improvement. It's figuring out where people are and where they want to be and how to get them there. Like, it might just be that simple. I mean, progressive has a specific, for me, sort of US historical valence, which is about like race and gender equity and all this stuff. But that's really difficult because that's one of those places where how it gets talked about has very little to do with what actually happens on the ground. But I think in the abstract, I think that this idea of progress is just tied to bettering the ways in which people feel like they have control and agency in their lives, and how to actually implement that in ways that meet the needs of multiple people. Because, countries are big. If I could be silly, it's important. It's so many people, right? And so thinking about even how to like disaggregate our ideas of progress from really basic notions of like, capitalist resource. Because the argument against it is always there's not enough money, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. But I'm going to go ahead and say I don't actually believe that. And so, what would the future actually look like if we thought more robustly about what people need and what people want, and actually gave ourselves the space to have that conversation outside of like who's going to pay for it? It's not that's not unimportant, but the question of it being payable is actually tied to how you answer the first question.
Right. So can we actually separate it? Like, can we separate those two questions? Because like you said, it's the capitalist, but God, I just realized my upbringing is so capitalist that can I separate those two questions?
What do you mean?
Like, can I separate that question of what do people need in the future from can we afford
It's really effing hard, and it destroys communities. I talk about this in arts and academia, how even when people make it, how they don't let go of like scarcity mentality and how it becomes so destructive for everyone
Mm-hmm.
involved. And we understand why. Like, we all struggle with it. But also, how do we create the conditions to move away from it? Because scarcity is its own kind of trap, right? To keep us in our place.
Yes. Scarcity is it's almost back to circle back to that original quote. It's almost as real
That's
and
amazing.
unreal as time. Like, it's kind of, yeah, it's a story that is very historical. Like, it's a story that has lasted in our history as like humans and humanity, but I think it's gone through so many different transformations. So we are like, I think the best way for us to even know that the story of scarcity can be different is to go back in time to see what scarcity has meant to different people in different times. And sort of like, I almost look at history as an opportunity, like it's an out for us, because where our imagination stops, history can actually prove to us that like there are other ways. Even if you don't believe that there can be, let me show to you that there have been. And I really appreciate that. I think it's part of why history gets banned when like dictators come
Art
into
and
power.
history out the door, right?
Out the door. Even in Nigeria, they outright banned it in secondary schools.
Yeah,
outright.
I was reading a thing about a coup this morning,
Like,
and it's
why?
about, the government after artists and poets first.
Yeah. It's actually scary. It's actually quite, now that it's really scary that like, I think about it, not too often, but when I think about it, it's a bit heavy knowing that I actually absolutely can become a target of violence just by encouraging people to express themselves, because expression is always, it's like a college. It's an institution of learning, like just self-expression. And sometimes when you learn that you can define yourself and be content, be satisfied with something that is not sort of like state given, a story that isn't state defined, you become an enemy of the state because you've taken one of its workers.
Oh, you just cut out.
Oh, did I? I was saying that like just the fact that you can become an enemy of the state by encouraging people to express themselves, because I was saying that I think that self-expression can be an institution of learning. And when you sort of like teach people that they can define themselves outside the state-sponsored story and the state-sponsored definition, you actually take away one of their workers.
I think that's exactly right. And that's always, I mean, that's what you're hearing now. Or I'm even thinking earlier when I was talking about the changes in American higher ed. That's more like, that's kind of the logic of it. Like, stop all this like liberation talk, right? Because all you're doing is producing people who don't want to do things the way we want to require them to, or some people require them to. I don't know who we are that way, right?
Yep. Gosh, it's frightening. But I almost don't want to end, because I know we have to end here, but I almost don't want to end on this sort of like frightening, bleak note. So like, I don't know, what are you hopeful
I'm hopeful for people. I'm definitely hopeful that we can find more ways to ask each other for what we actually want and need, and more ways to actually make it happen. I'm being vague on purpose, because again, I just think it's different in different situations. I think I'm also trying to figure out, just want people to actually think about it. I don't know how to say, like, it's like helping people understand,
right?
Which I think they know intuitively, that their lives could be different if they had a way to make it different. So what should that process even look like?
What do you want and need personally?
Oh, are you asking me? Oh, it's gone. Oh no. I think for me it's just space to make things. Like, I'm really And we know the struggle of like how much sort of work and labor support, like paycheck, you know, or fellowship you need to be able to just, you know, not even make art, to make scholarship. It's kind of shocking to me sometimes. This goes back to all like almost universal basic income kind of stuff, where it's like it's just made logistically impossible and it's not sustainable. So I'm feeling the unsustainability of trying to earn a paycheck so that I have enough money to do art and scholarship, right? What do you want?
Oh, okay. What do I want? Because you cut out a little bit, but I got most of it. What do I want? I think I want dignity. I want dignity for my choices, and I think my lifestyle, especially identifying as a non-religious queer person in Nigeria. I say that knowing that my mother doesn't know that any of that, but I still live my life. But I live my life, but I don't live all my life outward. And I think that I really wish it were possible for me to make all the decisions that I have to make toward my happiness without fearing that that's going to interfere with the happiness of people that I love, based off the fact that they are hooked or they identify with a story that tells them that, like, I'm not allowed to love in this way, because I think that I want to have time and space to collaborate with them on my life as a thing, but also on my work. But there is a way in which, like, once that becomes clear to them, collaborating with me on my life and my work is going to make them feel like they're collaborating with the very thing that they should be like fighting against and they should be putting walls up against. So it's I wish that I could afford both like my own dignity of my personal choices and the collaboration of my loved ones that live here.
Yeah, I think the being hooked on a story part is really interesting, right? And like how to fight through that or how to establish that, like, I mean, I don't know, or people love us, right? But it's like how you're worth the work. Yeah, I think those languages.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, because they will also have work to do that will seem to them more like it's for you than it is for them. So they have to be able to convince themselves that it is for me personally too, not just for like someone outside myself. So the hope is that they mean as much to me as I mean to them, or I mean as much to them as they mean to me, and they sort of like can see the benefits that they reap from sort of like understanding my perspective.
Oops, I think that's exactly right. Sorry, I was mumbling along, but my mic was turned off. Yes.
Yes, exactly. That's what I want. That's actually what I want for like time, and I think again that space is related to time, because I think if they had all the lifetime, like if they could see themselves across all lifetimes, they may see that like this is actually not as catastrophic. Like my decisions are not what causes the catastrophe that they think will cause. Because if they could see, then they could see themselves in either heaven or hell, which is part of their own story of what time like leads up to. Because for them, time leads into heaven or hell. So maybe they may see themselves in heaven or hell and understand that it's not because they had a queer daughter that they are in hell, or like this is not the decision that puts them in heaven.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we do have to end here. Thank you
I'm glad I got to talk to you.
so much, Marisa. Yeah, me too.
We shall have
I really
many more.
enjoyed this conversation.
Oh my God.
Next
I can't
week
wait
is
to
our
hear
call
it.
on cryptocurrency. I know. See.
I shall